Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife Kara is at work, and this is the full review on the Civivi Pintail. Now, as amazing as this knife is, it actually does have some bad. So we'll get into the bad on this knife here in just a little bit, but first let's break it down. So the Pintail comes in S35V on, I know this is Damascus. We'll talk about that here in a minute. Then it comes in a few different handle materials, green micarta, brown micarta. This is the carbon fiber G10 overlay stuff. So it's not solid carbon fiber. It's like a thin layer over the top of G10. You can actually see where it like basically divides right there. And then they actually have the carbon fiber layer on the inside too to really make it look like carbon fiber. Then it has steel liners and 3 forms of deployment. This is a super thin hollow grind. I mean, very thin. So I measured mine directly behind the edge, 8 thousandths. Then it gets up to about 10 thousandths right there. And then as you go up, it basically is 10 thousandths all through here. And then about right there, it gets up to about 15 thousandths. So super thin, very thin blade stock. So it does have a deep carry pocket clip, steel clip, and then T8s all the way around except for the clip, which is amazing. I like that. It does have a reversible pocket clip, so I would like to see T8s in there, but that's not even registering to me as a bad, but you know, if you do want to flip the clip. So the blade shape is a drop point blade. It has this swedge up here to reinforce the tip to bring the thickness of this all the way out to the tip. And using it, man, this thing cuts like a beast. I mean, it just goes through material so easily. Slicing with it, because of the thin hollow grind and such thin blade stock, it's made to cut. 100% it is made to cut, and it cuts great. Now, the ergos with the cutting performance, it's good, but it could be better, and we'll go into that here in just a little bit. But let's talk about cutting with it. So when cutting with it, you know, this is a small knife for me, so I cram my hands up there. You know, I kind of cover this flipper tab like that when I really cut with it, because you see how it is for me. You know, I don't really have either. I gotta have 3 fingers, or I got to cover the flipper tab. So, and there's not much of a finger choil here, so I kind of just cover it straight over the face of it. Or, you know, I do it however it works. I also do the pinch grips. I do these grips, but cutting with it cuts so good. Goes through materials. It just blazes through cardboard like nothing. I mean, it just goes through so easily. So it actually kind of makes up for the handle a little bit. Now, the utility cutting works also really good. I tend to kind of use my finger when I do it, but it also works just in the pinch. Because it's so thin, you can kind of just have, you know, the tip work just like that, and then the back of the knife kind of just pushes up into your palm as you're cutting. No problems with utility cuts. Has a great blade shape for it, and a precision tip that works good for utility cuts. Now let's talk about sharpening. Now, not the best sharpening choil, and we'll really talk about that here in a second, or at least a little bit more. But you can see where it kind of hit right there a little bit. Now that's because the plunge grind is, you see the taper. If you look at this area right here, you can really see how the thickness goes down to the edge. Now, all right here is a lot thinner than this. This is the plunge grind, and it's plunging down to the edge, and it basically terminates right at the edge. So if you do not want to do that, this little smile you see right in front of my finger right there, then you want to make sure you line it perfectly up with your stone. Let's pretend this is a stone. You want to make sure your edge lines perfectly up with the edge. You don't want to go like this. You want to make sure it sharpens like that, whether you have a fixed system or you're doing it freehand. Now let's show some sharpening, because I sharpen it too I sharpened it on my diamond plates. Started with a 300 grit. sharpens up really good. Now that's one of the benefits to Civivi knives. Even the Sun Cut knives and Wii knives, they are made to sharpen. And what I mean is they're made to cut, they're made to use, they are performers. So they also perform well sharpening. They're nice and thin, so it's quick to sharpen. They sharpen very fast. One of my most recommended knives for beginners to learn to sharpen Civivis. They're super easy to sharpen. They're a joy to sharpen. Their grinds are perfectly even, and they sharpen up really easily because they're so thin. The thinner it is behind the edge, the easier it is to sharpen. And then I took it to a fine 600 grit. And what do I mean by fine? What I mean is that I have, well, in this case, I used an old 600 grit diamond plate, so it's not as gritty as it used to be. It's a lot finer than it once was, so it's just an old diamond plate, sharpened up just fine, but it tends to polish a little bit more than a regular 600 grit would. Now there's differences between 600 grit. You can have a 600 grit diamond and a 600 grit aluminum oxide, and the finishes will be completely different. They both say they're 600 grit, it's just the type of material, and it also depends on the steel you're sharpening. So let's take a good look at this edge that I put on there. Which, let me say, the factory edge on this thing was amazing. It was a really good factory edge. Now, this is my 600 grit edge that I put on there. It looks really good. It's actually, in person, a lot shinier than it is on camera. It has a little bit of reflection to it. But you can see the grit looks really good, nice and even. The edge came out really good, looks really good, aside from the smile on the other side. After stropping it, man, did it come out super sticky. I mean, this thing, it's S35. Well, it's a Damascus, but it's super sticky. I mean, it is so sharp. Let's show it cutting some paper after stropping. Let's show it some cutting some paper and some paper towel, because in order for it to cut through paper towel, you got to have a very, very sharp knife. So yes, the thinness does help, but it cuts through paper really nice and clean. You can see how just clean it is. Then going through paper towel, I mean, it cuts so good. I mean, it just gets incredibly sharp. And I sharpen this whole knife up in about 15 minutes maybe altogether, maybe 20 minutes, because I was kind of taking my time a little bit. How is it in the pocket? It's good. The clip works great in and out of the pocket. It you know, these Civivi clips, this is a little different than their typical Civivi clips, and this is more like their typical, but it still works just about the same. Nice good ramp, lots of access underneath it, and yeah, it even fits in the pocket really good. No complaints. This is kind of a smaller knife to me, so carrying it is very easy. I could even carry this as a secondary. I know a lot of people could carry this as a primary, but to me, either way. Let's talk about this action. Man, this action though, whoo, super duper snappy. It even has some nice acoustics. It has a nice sound to it. The detent is nice and crisp. It's similar to the Civivi Elementum, but the flipper tab's different. So let's look at the flipper tabs really quick. You see the flipper tab is different, but the detent is very similar. So putting some thumb studs, well-placed thumb studs, because of this peak right here, gives you plenty of room to get your thumb in there. The reverse flick, same thing. I could not be happier with the action on this knife, meaning this size, this whole package just works great. I mean, for me personally, the thumb studs could be a little grippier, but it's really not that big of a deal. I just find myself slipping sometimes, but in all reality, it's great. It's not a bad or anything like that, but it's so good. The action is so fidgety. You just, once you flick it and, you know, feel the thumb studs and feel, because it's on ceramic bearings, once you feel that pow! You're like, whoa, whoa, that's some good action. The detent, when you unlock it's nice and early, so you can easily unlock it, let it hit your thumb on the way down, and let it drop. Very, very smooth. It's not like fall shut action, but you can easily do one smack. The access to the lock bar, nice and easy. I mean, it's not like outstanding, but you know, they have plenty of access. You just gotta, you know, push your finger nice and tight and, you know, to their cutout. Give you a good cutout, no problems. Nice centering, locked up, rock solid, very solid. I mean, I can bend it a little bit, just, you know, from flex, but that has nothing to do with how locked up it is. Like I said, it's locked up really good. And the centering, yes, it's pretty much perfect. I have been using the heck out of it. So what are some bad things? So some bad things. One, you know, this has like a shape that points down right here. So it's really cramped in the hand. It feels very small in the hand, like this. The flipper tab just really pushes me down. So like if I held the Elementum, the flipper tab, see how it's like, let's look at it really quick, how this one kind of pokes up and this one goes down. Well, in return, that makes it go up right here. So it gives you more room for a grip. This is the opposite. It winds up pointing down, so it gives you less grip right there because it pushes you down into the choil. So it's not comfortable. The clip makes it even worse. The clip is very tall. Let's look at the clip really quick. You see how much taller the clip is than the Elementum? It's so much taller. So being a small knife like this, it's really uncomfortable in the hand for me personally. Now, when I hold it like this, it's great. But holding it like this, it's not comfortable at all for me. Next thing, the sharpening choil. Oh wait, you know what? Back to the clip really quick before I get to that. The clip also is on top of the G10. I wish they would have inset that. I'm glad they used flat screws. You know, so it's not that big of a complaint, but figured I'd mention it. I like to see them inset it. The sharpening choil, they could have put it deeper, and now what's going to have to happen is I'm going to have to Dremel it. So you can get by with one good sharpening as long as you stay nice and tight to the edge when you sharpen. Then you can get away with it, but you're only going to get by with so many before you're going to have to cut yourself a deeper choil, or before you end up hitting it. It's inevitable eventually you're probably going to hit that a little bit because it's so close. I mean, you can see it. You can see the shadow of it. It's right there. So, you know, some choils look great, and then, you know, you use them and you realize. So, not too big of a deal, but I'm going to have to cut it in. Now you're probably thinking, well, isn't it going to be shiny after you put a choil in? Yes. So how do you put the etching back on? So what you do is you get some Winx rust remover. Winx rust remover. You get a jug of that, and you want to be careful with it. You know, it's some powerful stuff, so make sure you wear gloves and eyewear, whatever you got to do. And then you want to just get a Q-tip. Get the Q-tip and make sure you block off anything you don't want to hit with the acid, because it will affect anything it touches. And then get it wet on the Q-tip, and just after you Dremel or use a file, however you get your choil in there, just dab some of that acid on there and let it sit for a few minutes, and then wipe it off, and it should darken it up. It might not be as black as this, but it won't be shiny like the edge, at least after, you know, afterwards. And the acid will etch the steel to a darker color. You're going to want to use soap and water right afterwards to dilute it. Now, next thing, faux carbon fiber. I thought we were past that. guys. I thought we were past the faux carbon fiber. What do I mean by faux? Fake. Why are we still using fake carbon fiber? That's for like $20 knives, not $80 knives. And they even went all out and did the inside of it to make it even really look like it. It's just fake to me. It's so fake, it's ridiculous. I hate it. And Kara, I think, honestly thought this was real carbon fiber because she kind of got it for me. She got it for me to do whatever I want with the giveaway or whatever. It's not an actual birthday present or anything. She gave it to me a couple days before my birthday. But, you know, for the channel or whatever, she knows I like to get these new Civivis on the channel. But why? Why not real carbon fiber? They had used real micarta or just use G10. Just use G10. I personally don't like it. Yes, it does look good with the Damascus. I do believe it's real carbon fiber on the top of G10 because you can see the fibers right there. But then you see the real G10 and yeah, I don't know, whatever. It does have a lot of weight relief too. I forgot to say that. You can see all the weight relief in there, so it does have a good weight. And we'll get into a couple more good things here in a second. But yeah, I just wish they would have used some real carbon fiber or just some G10. I know it looks really good with the Damascus, but, or should I say solid carbon fiber, not the like the little overlay. They basically take a sheet of really thin carbon fiber, put and glue it on top of G10, and cut them out together. Now, and then the inside is like a sticker, basically. So, now for my last bad thing. So, before in the past, they were using the 9CR Damascus, okay? Well, it took a while to get that out of them. It's like they just put Damascus. They don't put in the listings S35VN Damascus. Is this S35VN Damascus? I heard it is. That's what I heard. But I'd like to just see it on their website. I'd like to just see it in the listings. What steel is it? Don't just put Damascus. Damascus isn't a kind of steel. That is a steel process. It's where they take 2 or 3 compatible steels and mix them together. So I do believe this is S35VN Damascus. At least that's where what all like a lot of people were saying on forums and whatnot, but I didn't get it from Civivi's information. So I would like to hear Civivi tell us what steel is in their Damascus. Is it S35VN and 9CR? I don't know. Whatever, you know, I don't know. But as far as I know, it's S35VN. Now, other than that, the jimping doesn't work. The jimping is not sharp at all. There might as well not even be jimping. And then you look at the back of the spine, you don't see the Damascus. Now, I know it's real Damascus because I can feel it. And what I mean is it's a real mixture. I can feel the mixture. And I even see it on the flipper tab. I mean, it looks really good. But the top of it, I don't know what they did differently. If they didn't wipe the top after etching. And it just, man, that thing is sharp. Because you don't see the Damascus through the top. It's just black. Same thing with the front right here. I'd like to see it, you know, all the different patterns on the top. But other than that, it is an incredible knife. It does have the ceramic bearings, internal stop pins. You see the stop pin right there, and then it goes on the liners, a lot like the McKenna. Speaking of the McKenna, it's a great size comparison. The McKenna, the Civivi McKenna, which is also, you know, Civivi knife, obviously, Civivi McKenna, same exact size. So if you know the size of the McKenna, you know the size of the Pintail. Basically 6 3/4 total length with a 2.9 inch blade, just under 3 inches. Here's the Civivi Elementum. And I will be versing these two knives here really soon in another video. Very, very soon. As I think they are very comparable. And there's good things and bad things about each one make them good for some people and bad for others. It's also a very good size comparison to the Elementum. The Elementum, I think, is maybe a tiny bit longer, not by much. Here is the new Sencut Scepter. Another good size comparison. The Scepter's a little bit longer, though. And then here is just one more, the new Badlands. You can see the Badlands is quite a bit bigger than the Pintail. So, great knife. I do like the knife a lot. I think it's a great buy. And possibly one of the better Civivi knives for most people. Now, like I said, I think it's a little cramped, but in the hand, and the clip really bothers me because it's up so high. But the slicing performance just makes this thing a beast. The action just knocks this thing out of the park. So between the action and the cutting performance for a 3-inch or under blade, this is about as good as it gets for you know, an under $100 knife, or should I, you know what, under a $90 knife, or you know, in the $80 range, because in the 100 and under range there are a lot of options. But if you're looking for performance, good quality, great action, the Civivi Pintail is a really good buy. I'd like to see the choil a little deeper, but to me that's an easy fix. But you know, if you're careful, you can miss it for a few sharpenings, or at least a couple sharpenings, I should say, possibly 2. The liners are shadow boxed too. I forgot to say that, meaning that they're bigger than the scale itself. You can see the liners. But yeah, there you guys go. I love you guys.